Hi, class. This is Professor Anderson. I hope all's well with you as we go into the sixth week of the session. Now, before I get into week six, just want to talk a little bit about the process essay, process analysis essay that was due Sunday, October 3rd. I should have the grading for that completed by early next week. I would say maybe around Monday. I'd say maybe Monday night, October 11th. I hope to have them all done by then. It usually takes me around 7 to 8 days for a class of this size, to complete them all. Now, if you haven't turned in the process essay yet, you still can get it in. Just try to get it in as soon as you can. I would say within the next 3 days, because after that, I will not accept late submissions. And also, we're getting to the point in the course, if you're behind, for any reason, then get a hold of me as soon as possible to discuss how we can get you back on track. All right, so going into week six, this is when we start exploring compare contrast writing. The readings for this include chapter 7 of our text, Introduction to Composition. That has just some basic information, I guess will serve as the foundation of compare contrast writing. Also, in the Learning Units DL section of Blackboard, we do have a video, compare contrast video, that is a complement to our readings from the text. Now, when it comes to assignments, we've got the compare contrast writing discussion board, as well as writing center assignment number 5. Now, actually, I think what I will do is I want to actually talk a little bit about writing center assignment number 5 first, because I think that's the most involved. Now, the discussion board is fairly simple. That's very straightforward. So I'll put that off for later in this video. But writing center assignment number 5, and let's go to our workbook here. Now, writing center assignment number 5, MLA documentation style, and the checklist again gives you an idea of what I will be looking for when you turn this in. Now, since we're doing this electronically, you don't have to physically bring in anything, so you could skip that part of it. But everything else I'll be looking for both parts of this assignment, because writing center assignment number 5 has 2 parts to it, as you're going to see. So we'll skip through this. And when it comes to the directions for MLA documentation style, just read these first few pages here. Why document your sources? Okay, kind of gives you an idea of why we want to do that for our essays. And then what is a source? How do you know if a source is good? As you're trying to gather them for papers that you write. Okay, so we'll skip past that. What information do you need about your sources to document them properly? Now, that's important, because anytime that you use a reference for a paper, okay, you need to gather certain information from that source in order to properly cite it. So this information, what exactly is it? Where you're going to look for the name of the author, you're going to look for the title of the source, where it's from, if it's from a book, if it's from a website, if it's from a magazine, version number, if that applies, publisher, publication date, and if it's an internet source, the URL. Okay, so you train yourself to really try to find that information about your source. So that kind of leads to this. Anytime you do a paper in MLA style and you use references, you need what's called a works cited page. Now, MLA has its own format when it comes to the works cited page, and that works cited page usually comes at the end of an essay. And it's a list of all the sources that you have used in the paper, that you cited in the paper. Now, the works cited always should be double-spaced. Okay, double-spaced, and it's in alphabetical order by author's last name. It also uses what's called the hanging indent. And you will see an example of that here on this page, because you've got a sample works cited here. These are the references that were used, in this particular paper here. And you notice how it follows the guidelines. Okay, each of the references are properly formatted. It has what's called the hanging indent, which is a reverse indent, and it's double spaced, and it's in alphabetical order. Okay, so Again, this is what part one of this assignment should look like. Your works cited. Okay, should be very similar to this. Now, the information that follows, this provides some sample works cited entries. This is important to pay attention to because it gives you the idea of the format for each type of reference that you might use for a paper. For instance, if you use a book, there's a certain format that you follow for the works cited entry. Author last name, author first name, title of book in italics, name of publisher, year of publication. Additionally, okay, we'll scroll down here. Basic format for an article in a print or web source. Okay, same thing. If you have a reference that's from a web source, print, article from either one of those, it has a certain format. And they provide examples for each of these. Okay, so this information is going to be very, very useful to you. All right, let's scroll down here a little further. And we're going to go to the directions of part one of this assignment. Now, the directions for part one, and it's asking us to do this. Look over the sets of articles at the end of the book. The articles are grouped into three topics: climate change, exercise as medicine, and poverty. So having looked at these articles, choose a topic that you think you would like to write about for assignments 5 through 10. The topics you choose must be based, however loosely, on any one or more articles in the set. You will eventually use these articles as sources in your essay that you will write for assignments 9 through 10. All right, so those articles, okay, we'll have to scroll down to the very end here. And let's go to it. Okay, so topics and articles for assignments 5 through 10. There are three topics to choose from for Writing Center assignments 5 through 10. For each of these topics, we provided articles for you to use throughout the series. Now, you're going to select one of these, and then you're going to stick with it from Writing Center assignment 5 all the way to Writing Center assignment 10. So the topics to choose from, as mentioned earlier, climate change, exercise as medicine, and poverty. So you look at the first set of articles which focus on climate change. So for instance, if you choose this as your topic, climate change, then these are the three articles that you're going to work with. And for Writing Center assignment 5, all you really need to do is pay attention to the basic information it provides about the article. All right, everything from the author names to the title, to the publication title, publisher sponsor, publication date, and the URL. Because what you're going to do is you're going to take all of this information here and you're going to format it into a works cited entry. So you do that for each of the three articles. If you choose climate change, you're going to do it for each of the three articles that are listed here in the back of the book. Okay, so that's what you do with this information for Writing Center assignment 5. Now let's go back up here to directions again. So you're going to take those the information for those three articles and you're going to format them on a works cited. Okay, now in addition to those three articles, you're also going to choose two additional ones. Find a fourth and fifth source that's related to your topic. This can come from a website, book, magazine, so on. So you're going to find that. So for instance, if you choose climate change, in addition to the three in the back of the book, you're going to also choose two additional ones for a total of 5. So your works cited page, for this Writing Center assignment is going to consist of 5 sources in total, 3 from the back of the book and 2 additional ones. And you follow MLA formatting, for each of those works cited entries. And it should look very similar to what we saw earlier on page 47. So that's part 1 of this assignment. Now, part 2 is when you quote and paraphrase. Now, quotation, what that is an exact borrowing of words from a source. The borrowed words are put in quotation marks. So that's literally word for word from a source. Paraphrase is when you take an idea from a source, but you put it in your own words. And you still need to cite it. You still need to indicate where the information comes from. Paraphrases are not in quotation marks. So they're going to give you some examples of how to do this in MLA style over the next couple pages. So pay attention to the examples that they include, for both quotes and paraphrases. Now, one thing about paraphrases, quotes and paraphrases, you need to introduce them. You notice how with each of these, they introduce them, they have some sort of attribution to them. In a recent Shakespeare newsletter article, Haley Baccarat contends, and then the quote. That's how you handle quotes. You just don't have quotes by themselves. You don't just have paraphrases by themselves. You need to indicate where they're coming from. So we'll just keep scrolling down here. Those are all some examples of how to handle quotes and paraphrases. So with part 2 of this assignment, what you do is you choose any 3 of the total 5 sources that you had for part 1 and produce a quotation and paraphrase for each. So what that means is you're going to have a quote and a paraphrase for 3 sources. And they're saying you might find it easier to paraphrase the same material you quote. Now, other advice here, make sure that you have used proper phrases of attribution and or parenthetical material. And then type and double space the assignment. So it may look very similar to this. And let's go back up here. Now, this was turned in to me, again, just to kind of give you a rough idea of what this should look like. Now, part 1 is the works cited. So you're going to have the works cited. It's going to have a total of 5 sources on there, 5 references on there, and it's going to follow MLA format. So that's what this particular student did for part 1. It looks like they chose exercises medicine as their topic. Now, part 2 were the quotes and paraphrases. All right, now a couple of things I have to point out here. And let me just kind of separate these so it's a little easier to. So it looks like here, this student for part 2, and I'll just kind of put that here at the top so it's clear. Part 2, quotes and paraphrases. All right. So, and the quotes and paraphrases, again, you want to make sure you have the in-text citation and you want to kind of lead into the quote. For instance, according to the U.S. National Library of Medicine, and then they have the quote. Now, with that, the key thing is U.S. National Library of Medicine. All right, that is the citation, and then you have the direct quote afterwards. Okay, now with this second one, the only problem I have here is it says as an article. You need to indicate what the name of the article is. So you would say as, whatever the title of the article is, you would just put that here. So as, such and such article explains, you may feel more relaxed and be in better mood after exercising. Now, if this is from a magazine or website, a magazine or book, you're going to have a page number. You don't have page numbers if your reference comes from a website. Okay, websites do not have page numbers, so you would not include that. So that's just something I wanted to point out. But for each source, for part 2, you're going to have a quote and a paraphrase. Okay, so you should have a total of 3 quotes and 3 paraphrases. So that's what this particular student tried to do. So, that's really what Writing Center Assignment 5 is about. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. You can also even sign up for a session in the Writing Center just to kind of, talk to somebody there, talk to a tutor there and just kind of say, hey, I just wanted to make sure that I understand what this particular Writing Center assignment is asking us to do. All right, because they are available for that. But I hope that this video goes a long way in clarifying some of this for you. And again, if you have any questions, just let me know. Just send me a quick email, and I can try to clarify things further. Okay, so that is Writing Center Assignment 5. Now, again, the other assignment that you have to do for week 6, compare and contrast writing discussion board. I think that that's pretty self-explanatory. We'll go to it right now. Now, compare and contrast writing discussion board. Compare and contrast essays seek to take two subjects and provide an explanation of both the differences and or similarities. An example of this would be online classes versus face-to-face classes in education. Currently, you are all taking English 111 in an online environment, but how does it really compare to traditional face-to-face courses? In this discussion, share your thoughts on what you feel are the primary distinctions between online classes and traditional face-to-face courses. What differences should students be most aware of and why? What would be any similarities? And then also, what topic ideas do you have for your compare-contrast paper? What are you thinking about doing a compare-contrast on? Now, the purpose of this discussion board is to really get us to start thinking about what we do with compare contrast, okay? Because basically we take two things that are related to each other in some respects, two things that have a lot in common. Like for instance, online classes versus face-to-face classes. Okay, they both relate to education. Okay, so that's the link that they have. They have to be two things that have some things in common in order to compare. All right, so this discussion board is asking us to really think about that when it comes to this online classes versus face-to-face. What would be the differences, the distinctions between the two? And then what would be the similarities? Now, you all are students that, again, you're taking online classes right now, but you've also taken face-to-face. So think about your experiences and think about what some of the points of comparison would be. Now, the other part of this discussion board is what topic ideas do you have for your compare contrast paper? Now, you're not committing to a specific topic at this point in time, but again, this is meant to encourage you to at least begin considering it. So when it comes to potential topics, again, just try to think of things that you think are relevant, you think that deserve some sort of compare contrast, because maybe you feel that, and I'll give you an example. Let's say it's between schools, all right? If you're thinking about going to U of M versus Michigan State, okay, then you would do a compare contrast on that. And the reason why is because maybe you feel that in order to get an understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of each, that's what you would do. So again, that's the purpose of the second part, just to get you to think about those topic ideas. So that's the discussion board for this week. And those are the two assignments, all right? This discussion board and Writing Center assignment number 5. Now, as always, again, if you have any questions or concerns, please get in touch with me. Other than that, let's have a great week 6.